You're listening to the Certified Personal Trainer Podcast, a show by personal trainers for personal trainers. It's time to become a better trainer, get more clients, and change more lives.
Everyone, as you make your way in, I just started our broadcast, so people should be finding their way in shortly. Awesome. Here they come. Perfect.
Super excited about today's topic, guys. Obviously, it is a very hot topic in the personal training world. I think especially over the course of, like, I would say, even I've only been in this industry for 6-7 years, and I have seen nutrition and nutrition certifications and having that specialty cert in nutrition that has really become a popular thing, but it's almost become a norm. It's almost become like a thing that most gyms and or clients want to see on your resume or want to see some type of experience with nutrition. So we're super excited to get into it. No worries if you're not certified or you don't have a CNS. That is not what I'm telling you to do. But I do think after today's conversation, if y'all feel like you're wanting to get your CNS, or you want to at least hear more about it, or you've been looking at a couple different options, reach out to me or Coach Pat or Coach Miguel. We're here to help. So that's really what we pride ourselves on here. We want to hear what your needs are and then kind of give you our best opinion on which certification course to get. So if you leave this webinar today being like, I want to get my CNS, reach out to us or ask your questions in the chat. That's why we're here. And you might really help someone else. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into it. So nutrition for the personal trainer. As I said, it's only going to benefit your career, getting a CNS or something with nutrition. There's many out there. I know Precision Nutrition is a great certification. Something that we want to kind of say before we start, unless you are an RD, unless you are a doctor, unless you are a certified nutritionist, just know state by state, there are loads of regulations. Some gyms are extremely strict about this. Others are not at all. I think it is extremely crucial for our entrepreneurs to have a CNS, at least, because you really do need to know the ins and outs of certain things when it comes to giving your clients advice on nutrition. You should never be forcing a client, telling them what to eat and that they must eat it or that they must not eat something, right? Allergies, the world we live in with all of these intolerances, you truthfully probably don't know what's going on. And that's not because you're undereducated. That's just because you probably, as you're sitting at a desk talking to your clients about what they eat in a day, you're probably not doing an allergy test on their back, pricking them with the needle, right? That's just not in our scope. So just as a kind of, I wanted to preface today's topic or conversation with this, but also just remember this as you go throughout your personal training career. If you ever feel like a client asked you a question about a certain type of food or anything like that, and it kind of makes you uncomfortable, or you feel like you probably don't have the right to answer that, don't make yourself feel uncomfortable. It's not worth it. And it's not worth telling your clients the wrong thing. I worked at a gym that was extremely strict about this because a client kind of overstepped their practice and literally had a client. It was a very bad situation because of a peanut allergy, and they just didn't know a certain protein bar had peanuts in it or had some form of nut. Okay. So that sounds so silly. And I know we're all adults, but it can come down to the nitty-gritty sometimes. And we will go over today how to properly and safely allow ourselves to help our clients with nutrition and guide them in the right direction and recommend to them what they probably could or probably maybe shouldn't do. but we're never forcing them. We're never diagnosing them with like a certain supplement that has things in it that we don't even really understand, right? Things like this, it gets a little bit wonky. And if you're ever wanting to get to that point with a client, if you're a bodybuilder trainer, if you're really, really wanting to see a huge amount of weight loss or weight gain, that's absolutely where you can outsource to a dietitian or a doctor even, right? So just wanted to put that out there. I know you've all probably heard it. And yeah, the goal is to obviously optimize their performance and their goals. And we want to work towards those specific goals. And as such awesome personal trainers like you all are, you all know that nutrition has such a big, big, big impact on those goals, right? But there's a safe way to go about giving this advice. Coaches, do you guys want to add on anything before we move on?
Yeah, I think this is the biggest thing of today's topic of conversation, really, is just discussing our scope of practice and knowing that while we often in learning through our basic CPT courses, the difference between general nutrition and like medical nutrition, there's a clear difference, and our scope of practice only allows us to focus on one. So for that reason, nutrition, though, should not be a topic that personal trainers shy away from or avoid, right? If the topic is ignored or ineffectively addressed, clients can seek out other questionable sources that maybe hinder their goals and performance. So that's not something we want to do either. So we need to understand that we're in the world of general nutritional advice. So nutrition and fitness, we know, require a balance, right? So that's why we're not going to avoid the topic or the discussion. So I think talking about these basic concepts that we've learned in our basic CPT training, or if you go further and have gotten a nutrition specialist certification, talking about these basic concepts is so important. But if clients need help actually creating a meal plan or something, like Coach Sam just said, it's totally okay. And it's preferred that you outsource some of that information. Or if you have a roster of people that you work with who are dietitians, right? You should, like, that'd be great way to cross-reference. That's important. So the important thing to remember is don't make recommendations or provide clients with specific meal plans unless you're a professional who possesses that prerequisite or that qualification. And if you don't, that's where we outsource. And that is totally okay. I think just don't shy away from this conversation, because sometimes we're scared to, like, or at least sometimes I'm scared to overstep. But that's where if a client comes up to me and asks me a question, I know, hey, that's a little outside my scope of practice. Obviously, I have an opinion or I would give a suggestion, but in terms of prescribing, that's not my role. That's not my job as a personal trainer. So that's important to consider today as we keep going forward.
Absolutely. And yeah, I know if you guys are ever kind of feeling like throughout this presentation or confused in general, like day to day, reach out to us. A thing that I kind of did when I was at Equinox is, and I know Eddie kind of mentions this in our CNS program, it's this idea of, is my client right now at a pretty baseline level of healthy living, right? And obviously pregnancy is like a different type of thing, but if you are seeing that perhaps your client or has told you that they had an eating disorder, right? If they had anorexia nervosa, if anything like that is kind of is brewing in your conversation as you're meeting this client, that might be where you're like, hey, okay, awesome. Let's have a doctor get involved, right? If this person says that they've had extreme, like they had diabetes in the past, right? That's where you're like, okay, I want to hear from a doctor that you're clear to exercise and get insight from me as well as a CNS, right? So these are obviously scenarios that would mean let's go to a doctor, let's go to a nutritionist. So the goal here is to just think, is my client at a baseline level of healthy living? And if they are, then you're probably good to go with kind of suggesting, hey, I think you should do this, drink this much water, blah, 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 blah. Right. And that's at like a comfortable level if you see that they're at that healthy baseline. So that's kind of what I recommend to you. I know it can get a little bit wonky and fuzzy and you're like, am I overstepping or blah, 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 blah. But yeah, cool.
I really just think that is, I mentioned before, the difference between general nutrition and medical nutrition. So general
Right.
nutrition, as
Absolutely.
Sandy said, is just nutritional advice that's educating your clients about how food impacts their body, right? Like that's what we're doing here as personal trainers. So whether it be eating too much fat puts them at higher risk of this, or not eating enough nutrients can increase this. As fitness trainers, it just involves sharing food choices that can enhance specifically their training sessions, if that's something you guys are looking to do together. But it also means just teaching them what food choices can help or hinder their results, goals, performance, right? Now, medical nutrition, that involves prescribing nutrition to specific health conditions, illnesses. Sam just mentioned diabetes. Now, if you have a client who has diabetes, they may benefit from a diet that stabilizes their blood sugar, right? But that is not within our scope of practice to prescribe that. We can offer specific food advice, but we can't offer any sort of meal plan or specific advice really to manage that disease, because that is just, like I said, outside of our scope of practice. So we'll discuss more like things that we can and can't suggest, but that's our biggest takeaway from today. And I don't think it's because as trainers, we don't understand our scope of practice. I think what it is many times clients assume that their personal trainer can move mountains.
Yep.
And that includes nutrition as well as physical fitness and movement. So that's where it feels like the pressure can be on. And that's where I think certain trainers step outside of their scope of practice. Just because clients assume. So once again, this sometimes is a taboo topic, scope of practice, but it's okay to say to a client like, hey, that is a little bit outside of my scope of practice. I could advise you to a professional who could help you further, but this is just like my baseline that I can provide for you. That's okay. Communicate that clearly. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to get into that when we do step number 3 in our presentation. So we'll definitely come back to that, Miguel. I love that. But yeah, let's move forward and get started. So we're going to give you guys 5 ways to try and improve your client's nutrition, right? And this might be, you might want to apply these 5 kind of key points to clients you already have. You might want to create a process with these 5 points that you want to kind of integrate from day 1, right? Whatever you take out of today's presentation, whatever nuggets really speak to you, take it and run with it. But we've kind of come up with 5 ways that we think can help. So let's do it. So number 1, we want to understand habits, restrictions. What is your client doing in the kitchen and outside of the kitchen? What are they eating? What's going on, right? Understanding this, triggers they may have with certain foods, understanding patterns, understanding when they eat in a day, understanding things that have nothing to do with the kitchen, like, what did they do for work? Are they sitting behind a cubicle all day and they like snack on Doritos all day? These are key pieces of information that will help you better help them, right? So understanding all of not only current habits, but previous habits is going to really, really, really help. So something that I personally do with every single client, I have a preliminary questionnaire. I'm sure you all do as well. And if you don't, I would highly recommend doing so. What's your name, age, weight, blah, 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 all these things, right? I would highly recommend asking them to write down what they eat in 48 hours on an average kind of normal day. Okay. Don't ask them to do it on a Saturday and don't ask them to even think about it. Just have them log what they have ate for 48 hours. Okay. This will let you in on a lot. It will give you a lot of insight if they do it honestly. Okay. So really urge them to just be honest, allow them to let you know, or let them know that you will not be mad at them for whatever is on that log. But try to do this. It's a great starting point. It's going to let you in on those habits right from the start. It's going to let you in on, do they have a lot of caffeine? Do they have no caffeine? Are they avoiding carbs because they think that they're going to make carbs make them fat? Are they only eating protein? Are they eating absolutely no protein? Right? These things are going to be key. And the other reason I would really urge them to do it on a weekday is there's 5 weekdays, right? So these people like habits. People get into habits. So I'm sure what they're eating on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is probably repeated, right? Or at least these habits are, okay? So have them do that. That's my recommendation when it comes to this. The goal with nutrition is longevity. And if you see that they really like certain foods and they're eating that like throughout the day, or you see that they absolutely have like no vegetables on their log, you might think, we need to figure out a veggie that this client likes and this client enjoys, because the goal with nutrition is longevity. We want them to not feel like they're on a diet. We want them to look forward to eating. That we want them to look at it as fuel. Food is fuel. And I know that's repeated all over Instagram and TikTok. No, it's actually the truth. Food is fuel. And it's been completely demonized in this weight loss, whatever world. And it's terrible. And it's something that should not even exist. So let your clients help you help them by jotting down what they're eating for those 48 hours. Coaches, do you have anything else to add in?
No, my only thing really on this is, this is so important. In any of your client questionnaires or in introductory like meetings you have with your clients where you're asking questions, asking about daily habits, not only whether it be food that they eat, right? But just like Sam said, what they do for work, like what's their in general, their Monday through Friday routine, right? It's so important because, as Sam just said, you might be able to find maybe a little loophole where your client isn't supporting themselves enough to be able to support training with you. Because I'll give you an example. I was working with someone recently, and they never mentioned to me that they're not really a breakfast person at all, which is totally fine. Awesome. Some people don't do it. Some people do intermittent fasting. Those are all things that you choose to do yourself, right? But I didn't know that. And every single workout, they were just complaining about like energy being so low, they can't get through it, they're so tired, all this stuff. And I asked, well, okay, like, what are you doing before these workouts? And if we're working out at like 4 or 5 p.m., what have you done beforehand? And it was skipping breakfast, working, sometimes they're so busy at work that they don't even stop for lunch, or they just snack on a small bag of chips. So that's where, as a personal trainer, we can step in and advise them and give them general nutritional advice, as Sam just said, like, hey, food is fuel. And if you want to get the most out of this program that we're doing together in these workouts, I need you to make sure that before you're coming here to work out with me, that you have some fuel in your body, that you have enough energy to be able to get through these workouts safely, because that's really what it is. It's to get through them safely. I could absolutely put you through this workout without any fuel, but now that is putting both of us at risk in this situation. So understanding habits in a situation like that is so important, because they're habits, and there's sometimes things that because they're so habitual, we don't even recognize or pay attention to. So it is important to ask those specifically during your initial questionnaires or client intake with any client. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Such great points. And I have a funny story, but I really want to talk about it on topic 3. So I'll wait. So let's move on.
Well, I'll also just mention Coach Pat is putting some great nuggets of truth and some information for you all in the chat. So check it out. Also, if you have questions, pop them in there. But yeah, let's keep going, Sam.
Awesome. So number 2, set and reference goals often. So obviously we know the power of goal setting in the physical aspect of personal training, right? Oh, where do we want to be in 4 weeks? Where do we want to be in 8 weeks? How much weight are you planning to lose this summer, right? How do we get there? Let's set some goals. Okay. So setting smart goals as a personal trainer, we all know the power. Now, I would argue setting goals when it comes to nutrition is for me actually more beneficial. And I also see how tightly nutrition and personal training ties in. I honestly commonly see that when my clients are super motivated in the gym, they're super motivated to eat healthy and in the kitchen, right? It kind of goes hand in hand. So creating goals that not only are smart, but they align with the personal training goals, that's going to be the money and hitting the nail on the head. And with that, you can also let your clients have goals of, hey, if I do this certain thing throughout the week, I can have a day where I'm like kind of whatever. I don't necessarily believe in cheat days. A lot of personal trainers do. I kind of believe in like a let's celebrate meal that I like kind of conquered all my goals this week. Whatever you guys want to do and however you want to word that to your clients is going to be super powerful. And more so when they reach these and when they hit these, give them that pat on the back. Let them know that it is so difficult. And it is. Nutrition is so difficult. Everyone says that, right? It's 80-20 or whatever people believe. I definitely think that nutritional goals are more difficult than physical goals. And for people that are not like us, that are not trainers, it's going to be even more difficult. Now, with that being said, with patting them on the back, reference patterns that you see and celebrate their wins, but don't be a helicopter mom. I would say this is like kind of that balance that you guys have to have as a personal trainer, because if you make them feel pressured or uncomfortable in any way with like referencing things too often or not often enough, it might get a little bit funky. And some people are sensitive towards like their eating habits and stuff. So just always be that positive Polly when it comes to nutrition. And if they mess up a couple of times, shit happens, right? I do think that people are a little bit more sensitive with this stuff, rather than how many push-ups did you do today? Oh, that wasn't enough, right? I think it's a little bit different.
But I think it is, though, because it is so sensitive, that is where understanding that our scope of practice really limits us in a kind of way when it comes to nutrition, but it also kind of helps us because nutrition can be such a subjective, sticky topic with many people. However, like you just mentioned, setting goals that I set with people that I work are very broad. If I have someone who, like I just said, doesn't eat breakfast, barely will get lunch, and if they do, they like ordered something out at work, and then dinner is like, I pick it up on the way home. It was like some drive-through fast food situation. If that's what I learned in my initial intake about this client, a goal that I'm going to set with them is just like, hey, can we try for the next month or two that at least one meal a day is something that we've made at home with some whole foods? That's my advice. I'm not telling them specifically what to eat. I'm not prescribing them a specific meal plan of like, I need 40 ounces of this, 10, like, no, I'm just setting a realistic, smart, achievable, attainable goal that once they do achieve, builds confidence enough to continue moving forward. And it's as simple as like, hey, let's do one meal a day. You made it at home, whole foods, real foods, nothing processed. Now, right?
Sorry. Yeah,
Like,
yeah, no, that's excellent. And I think I used to actually, I don't know why I didn't write this in here. I used to kind of have this mentality of addition goals rather than subtraction goals. So instead of subtracting things out of their diet, instead of saying you can't have this, you can't have that, it's more so like, let's try to add something in. Like, no, I hate vegetables. Okay. But what do you love? Oh, I love chicken. Okay, perfect. So with that chicken, why don't you try to make like a Mediterranean bowl and add a bunch of spinach, and you're not even going to be able to taste it, right? So let's add a vegetable into or maybe one meal a day, right? We're adding something in, and that's the goal rather than taking something away from them, like subtracting something. I think that might be a good way to think about all this. I had a client that was like always stomach hurting always. And I obviously not in my scope of practice at all, other than the fact that I have terrible stomach problems. I let them in on kind of what I go through, but I also was like, well, what are you eating? Asked that. Diet seemed pretty clean and normal. What do you do after you eat? And I found out that they instantaneously had dessert and then they laid down. So we added in steps after they ate. So every time he ate dinner, he would go walk his dog with his wife. It did wonders. And like, that wasn't me being like, you have to go work out after you eat. That was just me being like, hey, maybe try to just like change what you're doing after you eat to see if it helps with digestion, and perhaps like getting up and doing something rather than laying down and eating your ice cream might help. So I didn't take away his ice cream. I love ice cream. I was like, keep the ice cream, but go get some steps in, right? So we added something in. Psychologically, I think that's a lot easier for, like I said, I'm saying normal people. I know we're all normal people, but when I say normal people, I mean people that aren't personal trainer, crazy people like us. But y'all know what I mean. We're just fitness gurus. That's what else.
No, but those are great suggestions, because what you just said, that example, that is truly just, that involves educating your client about good like food management strategy and lifestyle choices, right? Those are things we can absolutely advise and suggest.
That's a perfect segue, Miguel. So why don't you just hop on? This is my favorite topic of this webinar today, y'all. I think you could tell because I've referenced topic 3 like 15 times. But yeah, thank you for that gorgeous segue, Miguel. Educate your clients, as Miguel just said, and it's extremely important. Your client came to you for a reason, and this is where a lot of I forget who said it at the beginning. A lot of people, I think, hear personal trainer and they also assume that we're nutritionists for some reason, right? Which I respect and I love, but I'm like, oh, I'm not. So this is where it's very important to remember. You are not a nutritionist, but you are absolutely allowed and should educate your clients, right? Whether this is, I heard someone said I should be tracking my macros, right? Instead of you being like, I can't track your macros for you. They probably don't know what a macro is. They probably don't know what a micro is, right? We're going to educate them. We're going to let them in on this world, and we're going to let them know what's worked for me personally so that they kind of gain insight on how they could maybe apply these topics and strategies to their own nutrition plan, right? And we're going to educate them. It's extremely complex and difficult, but at the same time, nutrition really isn't at all, right? We can definitely eat healthy if we put our mind to it, and we can reach our goals in the kitchen if we put our mind to it. But putting your mind to it means understanding it. And a lot of people just don't understand it, which is totally fine. But that's where the education element really comes in. The story that I was referring to, and this is kind of just a funny story for everyone. I had a client, and she had 2 little girls, and they were the pickiest of eaters, like kids, and they wanted frosted animal crackers, the normal kids meal situation, right? So she started training with me, and she wrote down for me, she logged for 48 hours what she ate in 48 hours. And I was like, Lord, you eat cleaner than a rabbit. This is amazing. Training you is going to be excellent. You want to lose 15 pounds? You're going to lose 30 eating this. We keep going. We keep doing our sessions. We're crushing it in the gym. And she is just not losing what she wanted to lose, right? Which was fine. She was at a healthy weight, but I could support weight loss for her if she wanted. And I was absolutely fine with that if that's what she wanted. And we both were working our ass off to get her there. And so I'm like, log your food for me again. This was like 4 months in. I'm like, log your food for me again. And I'm like, I want you to remember, log every piece of food that goes into your mouth, every morsel. And she texted me that night. She's like, I know what the problem is. And I'm like, what? And she's like, when my kids don't finish their peanut butter and jellies, when my kids don't finish their animal crackers, when my kids don't finish their Cheetos, guess who does? And I was like, absolutely. Which honestly, the wraparound of this entire story is I nannied last year for my nieces. And to all the moms and dads in this webinar, I completely get it, because when I have kids of my own, I will be eating the animal crackers, and I will damn well be eating the rest of the peanut butter and jelly. So I'm not shaming anyone that does that, but it was very interesting to see. It was a light bulb for her. She educated herself. She literally was like, oh shit, that extra 1,000 calories a day does come into play, right? And this is just supposed to be a funny story, but it really was this type of, she educated herself. She was like, oh, I now know kind of that. But B, it was a great, honestly, for her like check-in to like log her stuff again. So to take it back to topic 1, too, guys, if you're training with people for a while and they're not hitting their goals, maybe have them log again. That's like, I know we're getting a little bit off topic, but that's also like a great idea. Or for yourself, if you're trying to hit some goals, right, for this winter, for bulking season, like definitely log what you're eating right now and then log in the winter and see the changes and similarities and all that. But yeah, that was my funny story. And honestly, like I said, I will be that mom. So I'm not shaming anyone in here that eat the rest of
It happens. It totally does. But yeah, educate your clients, y'all, because I think what you just said, that with like that little story too, that's a perfect opportunity to make the suggestions that we're allowed to support weight loss, muscle gain, whatever it is. And that just simply involves educating fitness clients about whether it be calorie management, whether that like strategies to manage calories, that involves maybe eating less or eating more filling foods, avoiding calorie dense foods and drinks and snacks, right? So we're allowed to advise and suggest that. We're also allowed to educate about good food selection strategies. So teaching clients to choose whole foods over processed foods that are just quick and easy, right? We can also suggest good food timing strategies, how important it is maybe to, obviously every person is different. So we're not going to tell people like, you have to eat before you come work out with me, but like make sure that if we're working out late in the day, that you've fueled your body enough throughout the day to support this workout. We can also educate about supplementation information. We're not telling people to take supplements, but if someone comes to you with a question, obviously educate them on a different vitamin, mineral, or macronutrient, whether it be a protein supplement, right? And then also just really healthy lifestyle choices. Always educate clients on that. That just means identifying nutritious food options for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, increasing their just like daily movement in general, because most often like with clients with like weight loss goals, sometimes a client will be like, oh yes, I burned like 300 calories during this workout, and I'm like, great, that only accounts for maybe like the 200 that you're burning throughout the day. Like, what are you doing outside of the gym as well? Are you just sitting all day, or are we moving? Do you sit at a desk all day? So just educating them about lifestyle choices and changes that you can make outside of the gym with you to also expedite any goal or program that you both are working through, right? So that just goes to educating your clients. That's within our scope of practice. We are more than welcome and encouraged to educate and answer questions. But obviously, if there's something that a client is needing or wanting that is outside of our scope, that's where we point another direction and advise to seek someone who can help them. So yeah.
It's something that I learned, and it depends on what state y'all are in, guys. In our CNS, I know Eddie has a map of like, some states are like, you cannot give any advice. Other states don't care. I know there's like 3 states that like really don't care. I was in New York, and a way that my manager let me kind of do things, and I think there's so much power in this. When you're educating your clients, let them in on some stories that you've seen, right? Or experiences that you've encountered, or things that have worked for you personally, right? By letting them in on all of that, that's like, I think one of the most powerful, it's kind of like a testimonial. Something that I would say the most popular like misconception I see is thinking that if you eat like a lot less, you're gonna lose weight. I see that with, I would say, 70% of my clients.
Too
I
many.
mean, it's very sad. It's very sad. And majority of my clients that come to me saying that then say, but I've gained it all back after I stopped that diet. I gained it all back when I started eating again. Right. So then in my head, I'm like, right. So there you go. And then I go into here's why that happened. Right. Metabolism, blah, 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 blah. You get into it. You educate them on why that happened. And that is absolutely what I see like most commonly. The age range that I work with is usually, 19 to 35-year-old women. And all of them, like sometimes I see their log for 48 hours and it makes me want to cry because I'm like, holy crap, I could never survive off of that little of food. Right. So by educating them and by letting them in on stories that you've seen and how you've seen your clients turn around by actually eating more or eating more protein, at least, right? By educating them on this, it's going to help them mentally too. I mean, this stuff is so mental. This stuff is life-changing. Personal training is life-changing. But this element of it, adding this on top of it, helping them understand what they can do outside of the gym, it's insane, right? So educate your client, right? Absolutely push for this. Let's move on.
Yeah.
So with this, you can introduce ways of tracking. Now, this is like absolutely not a must, but I added this in here because I know a lot of people ask about this. I personally am very OCD, so I cannot use my Fitness Pal because if I do, I get fixated and then it's unhealthy. But a lot of people love my Fitness Pal. Noom is really cool. FujiKit I like because it not only like tracks it for you, but it can like tell you a lot of things about the foods that you're eating and like the brands and stuff. So if you guys have clients that ask about this stuff, or you want it personally, or you do kind of have a protocol for each of your clients to do so, absolutely check these out. This is where I will say, make sure to check out your state's regulations, especially if you work within a gym. I'm sure your PT managers have already talked to you about what you can and can't do when it comes to nutrition, but this is where I would say definitely make sure you're doing that. I know in New York, I was allowed to like look at my clients' Fitness Pals and be like, yeah, it looks great. Or, oh, if this were me, I'd change that. Things like that. And it really is not to be that person, but it really is the verbiage that you use when speaking to these people. That's just crucial. But absolutely, if your client is like, hey, I want to start journaling what I eat, or I really want to utilize an app to just keep me accountable, boom. This is the way to go. Do you use my Fitness Pal, Miguel?
I do, but like you, I will get very meticulous. As you just said, it like specifically when it comes to supplementing your fitness with nutrition, it does become very mental. And just like a brief aside of like what you just added at the end of our previous slide was, yeah, it is so mental, and you do need to be careful because specifically like with your clientele that you specifically work with, Sam, young girls who are 19 to 35, right? Who's maybe come to you with a goal of like wanting to lose weight. A lot of it is for vanity reasons, which is totally okay. Those are valid reasons, but we need to be very mindful of our role that we play because we play a very major role. I think sometimes we don't, I don't want to say don't like give ourselves enough respect, but like we need to recognize as a personal trainer, you play a very big role in this person's life and in changing whatever habits or goals that they have, right? So I do use my Fitness Pal, but it's mostly honestly for myself. I'll often, as you mentioned before, check in and be like, hey, let me just check in nutritionally, like how I'm doing. I'm pretty good off the cuff, just like off my head, knowing how I'm supplementing myself. But yeah, but I do advise it to clients too, especially when you're first like putting someone on board and stuff and you're wanting to figure this out. Oftentimes people are surprised when you start logging your food, either how much you eat or how little.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is such a great way to just educate them and be like, hey, this is kind of outside of my scope of practice. I'm not going to tell you what to eat, but let's make sure that maybe we're eating enough, or if our goal is to like not eat like it. Yeah, it just sheds light on a lot of things. So I think it's such a great tool. Definitely advise people to look into any of these, see which one works best for you and your clients. But yeah, I think people are, I'm sometimes often surprised. I'm like, oh shit, Miguel, like,
Oh
the,
yeah, all the time. I'm like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
like that amount of rice that I just ate could have fed a cow. But I'm like,
Right.
oh, oops. Oops. 200 grams of carbs, it's fine. And this is one last thing I'll say about this slide, y'all. And this is like, just take it with a grain of salt. You might want to also, depending on who you're working with, this is where you can outsource. This is where you can be like, oh my God, my friend's a nutritionist. Please, let's have a 3-way phone call and let's chat, right? Something like that, because this is absolutely, we're a nutritionist. Like, I respect them so much. They have such excellent ways of doing this stuff and like understanding the human body. That's great. This is where they come in, right? Oh, you not only want to be educated and learn about what you can do to maximize your results in the gym, you want a meal plan. You want to like have someone tell you exactly what to eat. Boom. You can, and I really do think it is a great idea to have a couple like connections of nutritionists or blah, 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 blah. Right. I've always thought that. I definitely have like 2 phone numbers in my phone that I'm like, if I have questions about nutrition, I know who I'm calling. So as a personal trainer, as you're networking, as you're doing your stuff, especially if you're, I'm really talking with my hands today. I feel like an Italian. Well, I am Italian, but as you're making your fitness community and networking, that's like something to think about, right? When you're meeting like different types of trainers and different types of people in the industry. Maybe get close to the nutritionist so you have their number to outsource, because this is perfect opportunity to refer them out.
Yeah, like we said earlier, like just many clients assume that personal trainers can provide specific guidance on nutrition and
Right.
nutrition practices. It is reasonable for, as I said, the trainer to just clearly and just very openly communicate that this is what you're legally, ethically, and skillfully able to provide. So in that moment, consider developing some sort of client toolkit that can provide information, education, upon meeting you, upon that first intake meeting, right? But then you can also include contact information of other licensed professionals. If you have friends that are nutritionists, dietitians, include their contact information for referral work. And this is a great way that clients just know what to expect with your services. And they'll also know that you're still able to provide guidance and help them with any questions or topics that may be beyond your scope. We're just going to outsource them. That's totally fine.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. And our last slide, make things enjoyable. I just had to add this in. And I think honestly, start with this, right? What foods do you like? Talk about it. If you live in the same city, oh, have you been to blah, blah, blah? It has great food. You should check it. Blah, blah, blah. Make food enjoyable. The topic of nutrition, I cannot express this enough. It is so, there's such a negative connotation. And I can't understand why. I can when it comes to like bikini competitors and the Arnold Schwarzenegger age and all of that good stuff. And I get it. Like I personally love bodybuilding. The reason I started working out was for physique. Like I get it. However, I will say normal, that's a terrible, for our clients in the gyms or clients that hire us, they probably are not trying to go to Miss Olympia, right? That's just probably not. Okay. So they're probably trying to get to that healthy baseline level that I was talking about. That's probably where about 60 to 70% of our clients are trying to go, right? So make things enjoyable. Use that addition tool instead of the subtraction tool. And if you're suggesting to subtract something, let them understand why, right? Let them in, educate them on, hey, that might not be a good choice or blah, 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 right? But in general, use positivity, use the pats on the back, use all of that to make this a fun lifestyle change, a good lifestyle change. I said it at the beginning and I'll say it at the end. And not to get personal, but this is something I struggle with. Nutrition is hard to make last. Fad diets will always be in. They're never going to be crushed. Everyone can say that they've tried them and they're done with them. Most people at some point in their life will try and try again with all these different fad diets or all these different eating habits because they're like, I'm not reaching my goals with what I'm currently doing in the kitchen. Therefore, I have to try something drastic, right? So the goal here is to educate our clients and make it fun for them to eat and to drink water. Remember, nutrition is also drinking water. So I should have talked more about that today, but drinking water, right? Doing all these things that are not on the personal training side of things. It's not that 1 hour session that we have. It's everything else that's kind of going with it. And to add on to that, Miguel, I know you touched on it, and I'm sure I would love to hear in the chat if anyone has struggled with this. A lot of clients ask about supplements. Okay. My biggest advice on that is let them know which ones work for you when it comes to like protein powder and, oh, do you take pre-workout? Yeah, I dabble, blah, blah, blah. Don't go overboard with supplements. I have seen a lot of bad things happen when people start taking supplements that they weren't supposed to, especially those in the mid to older generations, right? With like creatine and pre-workout, you have to be careful. You have to be careful. Okay. So just watch out with supplements. There's a difference, in my opinion, like fitness supplements and vitamins. That's different, right? If you tell them that you take vitamin D every day because it helps with your mood, that's not going to hurt them. It's vitamin D, right? But if you're like, yeah, I take C4 pre-workout twice a day, you might give them a heart attack, right? So we need to just I'm acting like I took C4 this morning. We might want to just consider giving them advice and educating them on supplements the same exact way we do with nutrition, right? I would say apply all of these things that we talked about today to supplements as well.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think also make it enjoyable for yourself. And the only way you're going to make it enjoyable for yourself is don't do anything you're not supposed to do, right? So don't offer individualized meal planning, right? Don't conduct any nutritional assessments and evaluate like needs or current statuses or like anything like that, right? Don't make specific recommendations on intakes and metrics that like we want to meet every day. Don't offer counseling on nutrition. Don't recommend, as Em just said, nutritional supplements. Obviously, you can educate. Don't prescribe, and don't promote yourself either as a nutritionist or a dietitian, unless you specifically have those licenses. Right?
Yeah, right.
But like any of those things that I had mentioned, regardless of the state that you live in and your laws and restrictions, it's just unethical. It's outside of your scope of practice, like I said, unless you specifically have those licenses and certifications. But just don't do those things. And it also makes it enjoyable for you. It's really just educating. When it comes to nutritional advice, which is so important, it's supplemental to anything we're doing in the gym, right? We're educating, we're not prescribing. That's the biggest thing, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, guys. And it's definitely, so I want to touch on this. We do have a CNS. So I know a couple of people actually that I spoke to before today's webinar that were kind of interested in this. If this is something that you are interested in, please reach out to me. I would love to take you through a little sneak peek of it, or help you purchase it today. Because you are here, you will get 30% off, which is absolutely, we do not usually do 30% off, but since you're in this webinar, we will be giving you 30% off of the CNS. Here's a couple, I just gave you guys a little sneak peek of some of the chapters. So the reason I would love if everyone in the world had their CNS is because of the education, right? Not only do you have those 3 letters next to your CPT, which is a phenomenal thing for your resume, or for my entrepreneurs on here, that's an excellent thing to kind of have on your website. But it is the education. Everyone should know this, whether you're a personal trainer or whether you're a zookeeper. Everyone should know this stuff, right? I think it's so important. I think it's like, honestly, a different it's like knowing a language. And I love it. This is my favorite program that we have. I'm hyped about it right now, clearly. But if you guys have any questions on it, feel free to write in the chat. We can answer any of those now, or you can feel free to email me or Miguel. I will post the link to the nutrition specialist program. Sorry, I'm blanking because my computer's freezing. I will post that for you guys. And yeah. So
I also just think, Sam, by the way, if you hop into the chat, someone was asking a question, what emails they're interested. But yeah, I just think this is so important because committing to any CEUs or just education in general, it'll supplement your work as a personal trainer. Because if you have found yourself with clients wanting to educate or advise on nutrition, not prescribe, but advise, but you've felt like a little uncomfortable or unweary or just not confident, this is really what it is. It's to build confidence, to know obviously your scope of practice and stay within it. But when it comes to educating clients, having the confidence to educate them and educate them appropriately, this is where this is so important. Obviously, you can use it as CEU credit, but more important than that, it's really for your own personal use and advantage, but also to your clients' use and advantage as well, because we're sharing that information with them. So
that's a good point though, Miguel, the CEU credit. If you guys in here are certified through us or anyone, and you do need a CEU coming up or anything like that, this does count as a CEU. But yeah, if you guys have any questions at all on this topic or whatever, please feel free to email myself or Miguel or Coach Pat. Today was super fun. If you take anything out of today's webinar, take out, I know we had a lot of don't do this, because yes, it is extremely important that we don't do that. But we want our clients to enjoy their life. We want them to reach their goals by enjoying the process, right? And we want them to keep doing that process. So we know how important that is, especially when it comes to nutrition and eating and drinking water and all the things. But it should be a fun thing.
This was so fun, Sam. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. Have a great day. This was fun, and we will talk soon. Thank you, guys.
Take care, guys.
As always, thanks for listening to the Certified Personal Trainer Podcast. You can learn more about fitness mentors at fitnessmentors.com. Be sure to share this podcast on social media. And remember, we are here to help you succeed.